Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this morning. So my name, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Zoe Clearwater from Dental Access. This morning I'm going to be running through implant retained digital dentistry and running through the 3Shape Implant Studio software. Okay, now the main topics that I'm going to be covering is the implant planning, the computer-aided design of your surgical guides, and also touching on the manufacturing. So overall, I'm hoping that you'll get a good understanding of how using technology is going to make this whole process more efficient. Okay, so I've just got a basic overview first. So we've got your implant workflow here. So of course you're going to be scanning, so whether that be a desktop scan or an intraoral scanner to take your patient impression. Then we've got your CT scan. Then of course you'll be doing your design, manufacturing, and then you'll be ready to do your treatment for your patient. Okay, so scanning. Now, as I said, you can either use your intraoral scanner, or of course you can import your scans from a desktop scanner. Within the software, you're not limited to one brand of scanner. So I've got a couple here that are in the images. But as long as you can produce an STL file from your scanner, then you'll be able to import that into the software to work on it. So as usual, you'll capture the upper, the lower, and the bite from your patient. And then you can follow that up with doing using a scan body. So that is used for the accuracy and precision of for placement of your implant. And these are available for most implant systems. So again, with your CBCT scan, now you might have one in your clinic. If not, you'll be sending your patient off site to have them done. But as long as you've received that DICOM file, that's all you need to be imported into the software. Okay, so in terms of design, we're going to be covering your implant planning. We'll be working with a completely open software. So as I said, you can work on any implant system with it. And then, then we'll be moving on to your surgical guide design. So I've just put an image up here. 3Shape's just released in the newest update. They're actually doing a bone design supported guide for edentulous cases. I won't be running through that with you today. I'll just be focusing on tooth-borne surgical guides, but that is an option that you can now do within the software. And then I'll also be showing you how you can do a screw retain crown. This is for immediate placement of a temporary crown. Okay, so the manufacturing side of it, of course, you're going to be 3D printing your guides, which you can do in-house, of course, very easily these days. Now, you just want to make sure in regards to the resin that you're using that it is autoclavable and it is approved for intraoral use within your patients. Okay, now post-processing. Now, I don't know if you've seen some of our previous webinars, but my colleagues have touched on post-processing when it comes to your 3D printing. And especially with surgical guides, this is very important when you want the high accuracy. So you want to make sure that you are washing them and curing them as per the manufacturer's recommendations of that resin. And this also eliminates the chance of any warpage that you're going to get in the material. Now you also see here, I've just got an image that's got the titanium sleeve in it, but you can purchase these for different systems as well. And they're available for fully guided, or if you're going to be doing for pilot drills as well. Okay, so I'm just going to touch on the investment considerations when you're looking at going down this path of entering into digital. You've got to consider your equipment, especially if you're going to be doing work like your surgical guides where you need the high accuracy. So you've got to consider your scanner, of course, your design software, and with that, you will be paying annual license fees, especially if you're going to be producing surgical guides, as it is considered a medical item. You do have to pay that ongoing license. And then you want to look at investing in a good 3D printer that's going to produce good results. And then also you've got to have the good skill set within your practice as well. So you want people that are capable of understanding the design software and also the 3D printing process as well. So in terms of the time that you're going to invest in it as well, you've got to consider you as the specialist will be working on the implant planning, but then of course you can always pass the manufacturing on to your nurse or even your technician. So in-house, your lab workflow for doing it in-house, of course, you've got to consider the cost of production. So who you're going to be paying to do this as well, and the time that goes into the printing. Your printer also does have consumable aspects that you need to take into account as well. You'll be looking at, well, a turnaround time depending again on what printer you go for, and probably from start to finish, you're probably looking at about, I would say, roughly 2 hours. But an advantage of going down this path, it does give you total control of the design of it and also the materials that you're going to be using. Okay, so this is your 3Shape Implant Studio software. Now it's very similar to, if you're currently like a Trios user or a 3Shape user of any of the other software, you'll see it's set up very similar. If I just jump back to patient, you'll see that it is set up the same way. Okay, so I've created a new case. I'm just going to come into the case setup. Now I'm working on tooth 24 today. So with this, we're just going to come along to your implant planning. Now you've got the option. So if you don't want to do the surgical guide in-house and you just want to do the implant planning, then you would only select implant planning. And same if you just want to design the surgical guide, then you don't select implant planning. But for today, I'm going to have both of them ticked. And I'm also going to select your screw retain crown. So we're going to run through that workflow as well. Okay. And like a lot of the other software, we're just going to select next. Okay, so I have already imported the scans. Now, if they weren't here, then we would have just selected import, and then that's when you can import them from wherever you're going to source them from. Same with your CT scan, this is where you import it. And again, it's really important that you're working on a good computer with a good graphics card so you can see your CT scans and things like that throughout this software. Okay, now if I was working on an area and the tooth was still present, then this is where I could remove the tooth. Okay, but in this case, it's already removed, so I don't need to worry about doing that. All right, if we did need to remove the tooth, all you would do is we're just going to click around the area. Okay, and that's now removed the tooth. So now we've got our working area there that we can work on. Okay. Now I don't need to worry about that in this instance, so I'm just going to move on to next. Okay, so you're up to doing your virtual crown. All right, so I'm going to select, we're working on the 2-4, and I'm just going to select it on the scan as well. And then you can see it produces our virtual crown. Now I've got options here as well. So if I want to change the smile library, I can select a different tooth just on this left-hand side here. Okay. Otherwise, if I'm happy with the one that it's given us, then you can see here, this works like your wax knife. So I've got transform, so if I click on it, generally your red balls rotate. and the green ones move up and down and side to side. So I can move that into position. Another option that I've got on here is if I want to copy the tooth. So in this instance, I do have the opposing one on the other side. So I'm just going to select that tooth, and it's going to take a copy of the anatomy from the other side and place it in there. Okay. Now we can also check our occlusion. You can see that it's a little bit high there, so I can use my wax knife and you can remove material. So over here, I'm just going to make it smaller, and then you've got your option here to increase or reduce the strength of how much material you're taking away. Okay, and then the other thing you want to check is your contacts. So if we select your contacts here, you can actually like automate what you're going to set them as. Okay, so if we're happy with that, we'll hit play. And then you can see it's broadened the contact to what you've got to be. And we can actually do the same with the occlusal surface. So we want to just make that, whether you want to have it just out of contact. We've also got the option to do that as well. Okay, now on this side here on the right side, we can remove the opposing model. You can remove your crown if you want to, just to check, and then you've also got your contact points here as well. So if you want to activate that. Okay. And then if you're not happy with the design, we can always select new design and the software will implement a new design for us. Okay, but once we're happy with all of that, we simply just go next. Okay, sorry about that, everyone. I think we're all back. Now, I'll just run back through that, setting your panoramic curve. Okay, so I think that's where I lost connection. Now, as I was saying, this is the green line I was talking about. So you basically want that to run through your midline. So that's going to help you set the panoramic curve as best as you can. Okay, so once you're happy with how that's all set, then we move on to next. And then this is where we were doing the manual alignment of your scans. So if I just go back to the, so I've just gone back to the initial alignment that was done by the software. As you can see, this is probably the best alignment that we're going to get. Now, if you're not happy with it, we're just going to select the 3-point alignment here. So all you need to do is select 3 points on the scan itself and the same points on the intraoral scan. So ideally, you're going to select it on the enamel. And you want 3 quite obvious points that it's going to find quite easy to pick up. Okay, so then you can see where it's now realigned it based on the points that I selected. Okay, and then once you're happy with the alignment side of it, you do have to confirm to accept it. So we're just going to select confirm alignment. Okay, and then we'll go next. I'll just point out as well, if we were working on the lower, then you would have to mark and highlight where the nerves are. But because we're not, you don't have to do it in this instance, so it skips that step and then we can move straight into the implant planning side of it. Okay, so just on your left-hand side here, if we select here, so we're just going to select the tooth that we're working on, which is the 2-4. And then it'll bring up the last implant library that we were using. But if you hit this back arrow, you can see how many different library catalogs are in the software. Okay, now if there's one here that you don't that you need that isn't here, you can always source that from the implant supplier themselves, or some of them can be now activated on your dongle. Okay, so for the demo purpose, I am going to select, I'm just going to use a Straumann bone level, and then down here you can select the different length and size of the implant that you're going to use. Okay, so you can see it brings it straight in, and as I said before, your red dots are used to rotate. You can also pick up, left click and pick up the whole implant and move it around. Okay. Now, if you do want a longer implant, you can go back here and select a different size, or you can simply just drag up and it'll take it to the next length of implant. Okay, you can also check your different views. So if we're going to have a look at the CT scan, you can check that it's positioned well. You can check your 90-degree angle view as well. Okay, and make any adjustments that you need to make. All right, now we're going to move on. Now, once you're happy with your implant planning, we can then move on to the surgical guide stage. Okay, so we're going to start by selecting the insertion direction. Now, this is automated again within the software, but if you want to change the insertion direction, simply click this one and it'll change it to the view that you're looking at the scan from. Okay, if you just want to stick to the automated one, then we'll just come back to the initial insertion direction that the software had set. Okay, so we've got our surgical guide creation on this side. We're just going to select the plus. Now, add patch, and it's like just drawing a spline in the other different 3Shape software if you've used it before. So you can either click around or you can left click and drag. Okay, and that's just going to add the patch into your surgical guide, and you always click on the dot that you started on. All right, so we've got that side covered, and I'm just going to do another patch. And you just want to click and rotate as you go. You've got to remember you are working on a 3D object on a 2D screen. Okay, so then there's our surgical guide. So I've made it a bit bigger this time, but you might make it of course smaller if you wanted to. Okay, you can also select glue channels. So if you're needing to glue in your sleeve, then just over here you can select to add your glue channels in there. Down the bottom here where it says manufacturer, now you've got your different options of your printers and manufacturing resources. So I've selected the Asiga Max, for example, for this one. It sets the parameters. So depending on what manufacturer you select will depend on the parameters and whether you can change them or not. Now we're just going to come down to bars and windows. So this is where I can add in a support bar. So we're just going to do a drop down, add in your support bar. So it's just a simple left click, drag across. Okay, and again, I can change this around if I want. I can make it thicker, so if you want to put a name on it, I'll show you how to do that as well. Okay, and we're just going to embed that into the guide. All right, and the other thing that we can add is your windows. So I'm just going to add viewing window, and this is mainly to just make sure that your guide's seated when you put it in the patient's mouth. And let's just put one here, for example. And I'll add one on this side. So again, we can make these bigger or smaller depending on how much you need to view. Okay. And then now I'm going to come down to ID tag. So this is where you're going to name your surgical guide. And you can name it whatever you like. So, oh, sorry. Not having a good run with technology today. Okay, so we're down to ID tag. All right, so we'll call this one SG for surgical guide. And then we can just place that wherever you like. Okay, you do have the option as well to invert it, which just embeds it into the material. Okay, now once you're happy with your surgical guide, then we're just going to go next. And then this is where you approve your case. So once you approve your planning, if you're sending it off to a laboratory or someone else to manufacture, your planning cannot be changed or altered in any way. Okay, now we'll select planning. So that's all approved, and now I cannot make any changes. You can't change the implant that you're going to use or anything. If that's the case, you'd have to restart your case again. Okay, it also gives you your surgical report. So as you can see, it runs through everything to do with your planning. So you can always send this off to your specialist as well, or whoever's placing the implant, to give them more detail for what you've planned. And then you also do need to approve the surgical guide design. Okay, the other form it gives you is your drill protocol. So again, this can be used for whoever's placing the implant. Okay, now once we go next, this is where we're going to do your crown design. So we're just going to set the emergence profile. Okay. And again, it sets it, the software sets it pretty well. Otherwise, you can change it as well. It's just a case of dragging the blue points that it's put on there. So we can move that around to depending on what you're needing. Okay. All right, otherwise we can just select auto and it will automatically place it where it thinks best. Now once your emergence profile is set, then we're going to move along to your crown design. Now it has copied the one that I did initially when I was building your virtual crown. And again, it gives you the same tools. So you've got your wax knife, you've got your transform, so you can move it around if you need to. Okay. Now, if the software is not happy with anything that you've done, then you will get these notifications that will advise you best based on the parameters that it thinks you should be working with. Okay. Now I'm just going to go next. And I'm just going to accept that this one's just for demo purposes, so we won't be too criticize me too harsh on my design. Okay, so now you can see that you've got your crown design. All right, and then once we're happy with everything, so we're going to just enable and save. Okay, so now you can see if we go to open folder, you can see that you've now got your surgical guide design. You've also got your surgical reports and the drilling protocol, so everything that you need is here. And then we've also got your crown design as well. So you can either mill that or now you can print that, whatever suits you best, and then that way you can do direct placement straight away. Okay. Okay, so I just want to say thank you for joining us this morning. If you do have any questions about anything, feel free to just get in touch with us. Or if you feel like you want a bit more information about the software, feel free to reach out. Yeah, but thank you for joining us and have a great weekend.